There's a test out there, and we'll get into it, that the doctors don't do because insurance companies do not cover this blood test. It's only $35, $40. So next time you go to the doctor, and I'll remind you of this later, ask the doctor, you want to know your fasting insulin number, not your fasting glucose. They give that to you. You know, they'll say, oh, you're around 100, you're healthy as a horse. But I'll get into it later on here why that's sort of misleading and 10 years behind what you ought to know. When we were in our 20s, most of us probably had fasting glucose of 100. So when they check it, you're healthy. This right here is what never gets checked at your doctor's office. Your fasting insulin level. It's not included by insurance. You have to pay for it. It's really only $35, $40. Tell your doctor, I'm going to pay for it, doc. I need to know this number. And I put 10 on there because that's a good number. If your fasting insulin number is 10 or lower, you're in good shape. You're probably still insulin sensitive. So the problem is this. Most of America goes to your doctor and he's going to check your fasting glucose. And your doctor is going to say, hey, Jeff, you're just fine. No problems. You're at 100. And so everyone leaves the doctor's office thinking they're fine. They never check this number, your fasting insulin number. Now, if you go to the doctor and he did both, he's like, hey, you're at 100, but your fasting insulin's at 20. That's more than double where it should be. So guess what? I'm walking around thinking I'm healthy, but my body is a bowl of insulin, and everything I eat is being shuttled away as fat storage. That's the problem. And as we showed all those chronic diseases, Alzheimer's, cancer, all that kind of stuff, if you have a lot of insulin floating around, it's taking that sugar and it's feeding things. A good example of that is there's been a lot of studies on breast cancer. And the typical tissue for breast cancer, they can see it, has 7 times more insulin receptors on the outside of that tissue, of that breast cancer, than your normal tissue. So when that person, woman, eats a piece of toast, all that glucose, and she's already afloat in insulin, those insulin receptors are going to suck all that glucose in there and make that cancer grow. And it's going to spread. And so some universities that we've worked with, our meals have all been used in cancer research at one particular major university in the state. They put them on our meals. They're all gluten-free and sugar-free. They put them in ketosis. What that does is cancer cells can't use ketone bodies to grow. It's a bad source of fuel for cancer. So by having them go keto, they're turning the faucet off to the fuel. And then in combination with their chemo and radiation, now you start seeing major shrinkage, maybe even some reversal of the cancer. So I would say that over half of America is walking around in this state. Okay, so when I was 35 and I was not diagnosed with diabetes, I'm pretty sure if my doctor would have checked that, he's going to say, hey, you're running a little hot, Jeff. You may want to make some lifestyle changes, because if that keeps up, and this could be going on for a decade or longer, that you could have high insulin levels. So when I was 35, I was maybe 275. And then I was 280 or 285 year after year after year, because I was walking around with all this extra insulin in my blood system. No one ever checked it. But they could have told me when I was 35, you may want to watch the carbs and sugar, Jeff, because you're going down a bad road. And eventually, when I turned 45, boom, my fasting glucose was actually 300 when my doctor checked me. Then he did my A1C, and it was 11.6. You're supposed to be at 5.6. So I've always been an overachiever, but that's kind of in a bad way. So that's not good. So that's what I'm trying to tell everybody is, I would reckon to say over half of America is walking around right now in this state. High insulin levels, their glucose is fine, the doctor is only checking their glucose. Before I was in this state, when I went back for my next yearly check, hey, you're a raging diabetic. That's been brewing for 10 years. They could check it, they just don't.